Hello, this is John from kevolprograming.com, and in this tutorial we're going to look at displaying another page from a JSP page. So we're going to look at how, for example, you can arrange it that the user goes to one JSP page but actually then sees another. And this also applies, or actually some of this applies to servlets as well, because you might want the user to go to a servlet and you might want that servlet to then look at the URL parameters or other information and then decide which JSP page to display and then display it. And later on in this series of tutorials we're going to use the stuff we see here to create a very powerful scalable architecture for our web applications. But let's get started. So at the moment I've got this web application, and among other things it's got an index.jsp that looks like that. So remember that. And I'm going to create here a new JSP. So and I'm just going to call it forwarding.jsp, maybe just forward.jsp. And so let's put some stuff in here just so you can see what it looks like again, and just run that. So this just says hello in it. Now supposing you decide that you want to, in this JSP, you want to not display the contents of this JSP. If the user goes to this URL corresponding to this JSP in their browser, you might want to display a completely different page. And we can do that with a JSP forward tag. So if I say JSP forward like this, in fact let's type that again and wait for Eclipse to autocomplete it. Okay, it's not doing now. Maybe if I go right back and say JSP forward, here we go, and I'm just going to hit return there because Eclipse will fill in the details for me. And here, this is just like a JSP include tag. I've got a page, I can specify a page here, but whereas include would put some extra stuff from another page in here, forward replaces the contents of this page completely with the page you specify here. So here I'm going to put index.jsp, and if I run this now, so we're going to see that this is actually index.jsp. It's this. It doesn't say hello because we haven't got this page at all. Now the thing about this is it happens at the server end of things. So the user in their browser is going to go to forward.jsp, and the URL is going to say forward.jsp, but the data that the server will actually send them, that Tomcat or your application server will send, will be from whichever page you redirected to, forwarded to. It's going to be in this case from index.jsp. Now there's another way of accomplishing exactly the same thing, which is, let's turn this into a comment for a start. So let's just, in fact, maybe I won't, because I'm going to mess things up if I'm not careful. So if I put comment tags around this, I'm not actually sure if I can preserve it intact as I'd like to or not. So hopefully now that will not work. It's just a comment. Let's just check. Okay, there we go. It has worked. Okay, let's get rid of that then. So that's the first method of forwarding with a JSP forward tag, and which has a page attribute. And the second way is to use actual Java, and you can use this way in a servlet as well. So I'm going to just put a scriptlet in here, and I'm going to say request get request dispatcher, and that takes a string argument, and the string argument is the page that you're going to forward to. So again, I'll say index.jsp, and then I'll say .forward, and then you can see this takes a request and a response. So I'm just going to pass in the request and response objects from my servlet here. And now this, even if you're writing a servlet by hand, I mean a JSP will get compiled into a servlet, but if you're creating a servlet by hand, this will work from a servlet as well. And if I run this, you can see that we're not seeing, again we're going to the forward.jsp URL, but we're seeing the contents of index.jsp, and that's all handled at the server end, so the browser never knows anything about about forward.jsp. It only sees the JSP that you've forwarded to. And by the way, you might see a slightly different way of doing this, just by getting a web context object and doing it's almost the same thing, but just slightly different syntax, but the idea is the same. So let's leave that. I can actually comment this out. So let's just, whoops, didn't mean to get rid of it. Let's just do this for a minute. Now that's forwarding, but sometimes you want to redirect, and the big difference between a redirect and a forward is that with a redirect, the browser initially sees the page, if only for a split second, that the user's actually gone to, but that page then redirects to another page, and so then it changes to another page. And redirects are often used, for example, in payment systems, whereas once the payment's gone through, it redirects to another page. So then it's quite hard for the user to go back and screw up the payment by making it again accidentally or something, which is good. So to redirect, you can use the response object and say send redirect. There we go, send redirect. And I can say here index.jsp again, and let's just run that, and it's going to look probably the same, except that you will notice here we haven't got forward.jsp in the URL bar again, like we did last time, because this time what's happened is the user's gone. I've gone to forward.jsp, and then it's redirected very quickly to index.jsp. So we just try that, forward.jsp, hit return, it redirects to index.jsp. So this is a client-side redirect, where the browser makes a request to one JSP and gets that JSP, but something in that JSP causes the browser to make another request to the forwarded.jsp. So that's includes and redirects, and probably the one that's most important for our purposes in a series of tutorials is the mechanism with this request dispatcher, which allows you to basically, in your Java code, and this could be in a servlet as I say, decide what page you want to go to next, and we're going to be looking at that more in the future. But that's all for now, and until next time, happy coding.